when there are discussions on CSR or sustainability, the human rights element somehow is not given that prominence. And since it's all about people, companies are about people, communities are about people, human rights actually be the center of center of everything in development. What should Indian companies do, or perhaps NGOs do, to ensure that it gets its due?
That's very good, Sanjay. And that's, climate change is not an environmental issue. Climate change is distinctly an equity issue and a human rights issue, whether it's between North and South or the impact on people. It is caused by what we call environmental, the impact on livelihoods, for example, on safety, security. These are human rights issues. Now, what needs to not be done is companies thinking of human rights as a tick box issue. Is there child labor? Do I have a policy? And that is the most damaging thing. Now here, I'll give you one example, a concrete example of what can be done. Corporates in India, Sanjay, as you're well aware, have literally thousands of NGO partners.
Yes.
Yep, one way or the other, they support them, and this has been going on for a while now. First of all, amongst those NGOs, you answer the question, how much human rights understanding is there?
Yes.
See?
Yeah.
Before you expect a corporation to understand what is human rights, and it's not just ek labor right to collective bargaining, these are all rights. They should be able to name human rights, they should be able to allude to our constitution, they should be able to understand the evolution of what is a human right, what is enforceable, are these rights limited, are they universal, what are the debates, a basic orientation. So I think everyone who goes into a company should have the opportunity of at least 2 hours, and there are very good online modules where you run through a course in human rights. It's a very simple, short one, like you do on company policy, like you do on company, values and all that. Okay, number one. Number two, these NGOs who have access to companies, Sanjay, access in terms of partnerships, even at the development end, even as they say at the community end, should start talking about Dalits, women, children, tribal people, consumers as from a rights-based perspective. So whether you're a consumer organization, whether you are a development NGO, whether you're a labor NGO, a trade union, a business school, we should align our conversation first with civil society to promote a discourse with businesses on human rights and build our capacities to do so. If we don't do that, and we're just expecting companies to get it and we haven't necessarily got it. So I talked to a lot of I was just in discussion with, CRY, who have become child rights in you, who were child relief in you earlier.
Yes.
Now this is it's a very interesting case. Are they going to promote children's rights when they talk to companies? Do they think that funding might decrease or rights se dar jayenge? This sort of conversation. No, not at all. I think leading companies are very receptive and have understood. Unfortunately, human rights carries a sort of baggage of activism. People think of it as the worst political rights abuses, etc., by the state. And I am projecting human rights in a much more positive way, that there are those cases where we don't want companies to violate human rights. But there are those endless examples in India where companies are already doing something for the welfare and the benefit of the underprivileged, except that they haven't done it in a rights-based way. Therefore, many of those examples of CSR or what companies did in the community 20 years ago are buried in the dust, Sanjay. They don't live today. They're not continuing. They haven't sustained. And at least one of the reasons is that not just local ownership and all that, but that human rights was not part of that discourse. So, secondly, Sanjay, as our companies become more and more multinational, why limit this discourse to India? Every major listed company in Bombay Stock Exchange is a global company, is a multinational. So we are having a human rights impact all over the world. The management of that impact is essential. We don't want Indian companies to get a bad name in difficult countries overseas or anywhere overseas where they make a mess of their human rights performance, and they are at risk because they have not managed it yet. So you've seen what's happened with Shell and other companies in the past on human rights and many others. Next it'll be some Indian brand names there. And that's not good for India Inc. So if it wants to be global, there is every essentiality to grab hold of human rights and put it where it belongs. So I think that they've got the architecture today. That was our job. The UN guiding principle, the NDGs, we've done this now. Now, I think business has to, and the chambers really have to wake up and look at this principle in a new way. It is a 21st century principle. Some of the other things may be older, and I think it's an opportunity, and I think that I'm neither disappointed nor overexcited. I think that there has been some serious attention given, but this is a critical window right now,
so
in the next couple of years.
So human rights should not be an add-on in all the business schools or even the TISS types.
Core issue. It cross-cuts. Look, if you're a consumer, you have to understand. A consumer must understand what their rights are. A labor must understand what its rights. And in India, sadly, a lot of workers and people simply don't know their rights. There is ignorance. If I go to home workers working and stitching something for ultimately a large brand retailing company, they don't know their rights, but they have rights. And now everything is contingent on promoting an awareness of human rights. So I think even the National Human Rights Commission, Sanjay, there is a discussion on with them at a preliminary stage that they need to set up a cell specifically to look at business in two components: violations by business of human rights, whether in complicity with the state or not, and secondly, they should provide an access for grievances. This is a very important pillar. I just wanted to mention that the human rights obligations of business are not standing in a vacuum. The UN principles recognize that the state has a duty to protect, the corporates a responsibility to respect human rights, and then for all people whose human rights have been violated or abused by corporations in this case, they must have access to appropriate grievance mechanism, be these legal, semi-legal, quasi-legal, international, domestic, national, regional, whatever. Consumer courts are one example of that. They are rights of the consumer, and district consumer courts can dispense justice there on the spot. Why can't we have it with other human rights issues?
But how can we ensure that very quickly, all the